Wellcamp backlash, a fiery press conference. The Premier defends her government's decision to build the soon-to-be mothballed facility.
Free masks and rapid antigen tests. Tonight we'll tell you where to get them.
10 years on from the domestic violence murder that shook the country, honouring the legacy of Alison Baden-Clay.
The Commonwealth Games get underway with an electrifying opening ceremony complete with royal touches.
Car, bus or e-scooter, we test the fastest way for you to get to work in a special transport investigation.
And a fond farewell, the big stars of Australia's longest running soapie finally say goodbye.
This is 9 News Queensland.
Good evening. The Premier has denied using the Wellcamp quarantine facility to politically wedge the former federal government at the height of the pandemic.
In what became a strained press conference, Anastasia Palaszczuk took questions for the first time since it was announced the $215 million site is being mothballed.
In her first media event since the start of the week, the Premier faced questions about the very expensive quarantine facility that was opened after the borders did and now will be shelved.
We needed a dedicated quarantine facility.
Anastasia Palaszczuk said the government decided to mothball Wellcamp on Monday before she faced budget estimates. But it was left to her deputy to answer questions about it on Wednesday in the hearings where it was revealed.
It hadn't been finalised. We were discussing it.
Now, the first time taking questions on the decision Wellcamp's no longer needed and revelations about the precise $215 million cost, the Premier is still standing by the decision, even though fewer than 750 people ever used it and it'll belong to a private company.
Josh, I don't see if anyone else got any other questions, with all due respect.
But questions remain about why it was touted as the silver bullet, even though it opened well after the state borders did, a time when more than 8,000 people were left locked out of the state for months, waiting to get into hotel quarantine.
My job was to keep Queenslanders safe, and I'll stand on my record.
Premier, Wellcamp didn't keep Queenslanders safe at all. You could have done other measures at the time to keep Queenslanders safe,
Josh,
and keep the border functioning like every other state did.
I'll repeat to you again, today is Be Kind Day. Strive to be kind.
Premier.
No, I'm serious.
Premier, these are
I'm answering
valid
your questions.
This online statement shows on August 16 last year, the Queensland Government first signed a Memorandum of Understanding with the Commonwealth to forge ahead with the quarantine facility at Pinkenba. 9 days later, the Premier spectacularly announced the entire hotel quarantine network would be shut down, leaving thousands locked out for months.
Those landing after midday no longer welcome.
Now they've changed their mind.
It's too much pressure.
The very next day is when the Premier announced Wellcamp was the answer.
We've got to get on with this. It is a race. 2 are definitely better than 1.
It was dripping in politics. The timing, the way the announcement was made, the circus that had led up to the event.
Well, Josh Bavis joins us live in the studio now. Josh, do we have any more details tonight on what will become of Wellcamp or Pinkenba?
Well, Melissa, it's still not clear what will become of the site when it's wound down. It will ultimately be a privately owned facility, up to the Wagner Corporation to decide how to use it. And the federal government hasn't responded to inquiries about how far off the Pinkenba site is, even though the state says it won't need that one either. All of this comes as the Auditor-General digs deeper into how this deal was struck, and the Auditor-General's office is now digging into the paperwork. It's still sourcing all of that information for its investigation.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Queensland's new satellite hospitals are set to face cost blowouts and delays. The new details revealed in Parliament, along with news on investigations within the health system.
A check-up on our health system. Ambulance bosses revealing 9 deaths were sent to the coroner last year, while on the north side, another 12 hospital cases are under investigation, including harm to a mother and baby. Answers on exactly what happened not forthcoming.
Can you tell the committee what happened? Was there a death? So did a mother or a baby die at the Caboolture Hospital?
I can't provide those details except to say that it is part of that broader review.
More clarity, though, on Queensland's satellite hospitals, the price of building materials leading to a $15 million cost blowout. 4 facilities at Bribie Island, Kalanga, 8 Mile Plains and Tugun are also facing construction delays due to site and native title issues.
No matter who was in government, those issues would be happening.
There's also debate about whether they should be called hospitals at all.
How many overnight beds will each of these facilities have, and which one of them has a 24/7 emergency department?
So they don't have overnight beds and they don't have emergency departments. They have urgent care centres, which is appropriate to the role for an ambulatory satellite hospital.
Today's hearings also revealed the ambulance ramping crisis is getting worse. As Omicron sweeps across Queensland, 45% of ambulances now have to wait at least 30 minutes before offloading their patients into hospital.
It's the worst in the nation. The member loves to cherry pick stats, but the reality is that we have made improvements, but we also have faced 3 waves of Omicron.
Tim Arvia, 9 News.
Concerns over the third COVID-19 wave have prompted a government deal for this year's Ekka. Natasha Kramer joined us from the showgrounds. Nat, there'll be free masks.
Yes, Andrew, the show is back for the first time since 2019 and masks are also back if you want one. The government has been encouraging Queenslanders to wear our masks indoors as we navigate our way through a rise of COVID cases, and it's jumped with big numbers expected here from next Saturday. It's moved to introduce masks at the entry if showgoers do want one for free. Now, the RNA says while majority of the show is outdoors, there are still indoor pavilions and it's added extra safety measures as well. There'll be around 300 hand sanitising stations around the event. It's also got plans in place if there is a staff outbreak, and for the first time there will be a cap on showgoer numbers. Tickets will have a daily limit of 65,000.
That allows us to manage those crowds and make sure it's a great experience for everyone. We do expect to have great crowds after a 2-year forced break.
Today there was 9,420 new COVID cases recorded, and Melissa, sadly, there was 17 more deaths.
Natasha, thank you. Fire has just ripped through a motorbike repair shop on the Gold Coast. Let's go live to Mackenzie Colohan at Burleigh Heads. Mackenzie, workers were forced to flee as the blaze took hold.
They were, Melissa. The fire broke out at this workshop at around 2:30 this afternoon, and because of the high fuel load, given it's an automotive business, there's a lot of gasoline inside, it spread incredibly quickly. Some of the staff members actually ran back into the burning building to try and salvage some of those expensive motorbikes, but the heat was simply too intense, and once they realised they weren't going to be able to put it out, they had to stand back and watch it burn. Police arrived fairly quickly. They locked down the street and evacuated nearby businesses, and firefighters were able to bring the blaze under control fairly quickly, but it's been gutted. There's nothing left. I spoke to the owner a short time ago. He's understandably shattered. He didn't want to go on camera and tells me it was just a freak accident, and authorities believe they know what caused the fire.
One of the workers there was hurting a piece of metal and it flipped off and landed in some oil, and the fire started from there, so we'll treat it as accidental.
Now, the young owner did suffer some minor burns to his forearms when he was trying to save some of those bikes. Thankfully, he didn't require treatment from paramedics, and Andrew, nobody was seriously injured and the building is insured.
Yeah, it really took hold, didn't it, Mackenzie? Thank you. Australians are paying the price for the recent chaos in the energy market that saw wholesale prices hit unprecedented levels. The pain is already flowing through to power bills, and tonight a warning, it's about to get worse.
The cost of powering every home in the country has never been this high.
We haven't seen prices at this level before or even close to it.
The inevitable result of a recent crisis in the East Coast energy market, and now we know just how bad it was. A new report by the Australian Energy Market Operator shows the average price for electricity in the June quarter hit $264 per megawatt hour, 3 times higher than the same period in 2021. It was a similar story for gas, costing on average $28.40 a gigajoule compared to just $8.20 a year ago. The costs so extreme, the operator had to temporarily seize control of the grid 6 weeks ago.
We've never seen it across the whole market in the history of the market.
But the intervention couldn't stop the record prices flowing through to household bills, making life harder for single mum Mandy, who hasn't turned her heater on all winter.
We're limiting the showers that we have, we're limiting hot meals that we have, so we don't...